Hi everybody and welcome back. This is Mindy Eggen for Honeybee Stamps, and in today's video we are going to be creating an out of this world birthday card. First, I want to show you some of the products that I'll be using in today's video. This is the Far Out Friends stamp set and the honey cuts that go with it. This is a large 6x8 stamp set. I'm also going to be using the birthday stamp set and the birthday honey cuts. So there's 3 of them in the honey cuts. I'm also going to be using the new Twinkle Twinkle stencil. This creates some stars for our background. And I just wanted to show you here, this is the Far Out Friends Sentiments, and it also has a honey cut die set for it as well. I won't be using it, but I did want to show you that there are some coordinating sentiments that would go with that Far Out Friends stamp set with all the images. So to start out the card, I'm going to be stamping out a few of the images that I'm going to be using. I'm stamping out these 3 images onto some Neenah Solar White cardstock. This is 80 pound. This is the cardstock of my choice that I like to Copic color on. I'm stamping those images in the Amalgam Obsidian ink from Gina K Designs, which is Copic friendly, watercolor friendly, just everything friendly ink. And I do stamp those images twice just to make sure I have some really nice crisp black lines. Now I'm going to move on to the Copic coloring portion, and I will have the color combos that I'm using listed up top in the video. I decided to go with a blue and orange rocket ship. To me, that was kind of something you don't see very often, or I don't. It's not what I think of when I'm thinking of rocket ships. So I wanted to go for something a little bit different. I have the 3 color combo here that I'm using, which is typically what I do when I'm coloring with my Copic markers. And I start with the darkest color, then I have the mid-tone, and then finish blending out with the lightest color, which to me is going to look like I have a shine on my rocket ship. As far as where your shadow is going to be, that's completely up to you. I left it where the middle is the lightest area. Same thing now with my oranges, as I have the 3 colors here that I'm using. Now this one I'm adding the shadow or the darkest color that's closest to the rocket ship. So like I said, that's kind of up to you. I just make sure I always have a dark and light area for sure. The mid-tone just kind of depends on what markers you choose. I just kind of grab whatever is on my shelf. I don't pay attention too much to the colors. And then I'm adding that orange around the windows, and then I'm going to color those windows with some cool grays. So I have the C4, C2, and C0, and just adding a slight shadow to one side of those windows. Then I'm going to move on to the flames that come out of the rocket ship. So I decided to do those in some yellows mainly because I do have a lot of the orange on the rocket ship, and just added a smidge of orange to the middle. And then I'm coloring Saturn. Now this can be colored in so many different ways. I decided to go for some colors that weren't on my card yet as far as the rocket ship, and I knew what I wanted to do for an ink blended background, and these colors would not be in that background. So I'm doing, my rings are going to be in kind of a light green. Then I'm going to color in the rest of the planet there with purples. Now I started with the lightest color mainly to help me know where to color on there because they do kind of mix. The lines go back and forth. So I started with the light color just to make sure I knew where I was going. And then I'm going to come in with kind of these teal colors and finish off. Same thing, I started with that light color just to kind of use it as a guide as to where I'm going. And absolutely no rhyme or reason to where the darkest color is, where my shadow color is going to be. Once I'm finished coloring, I'm going to line up that coordinating die, hold them in place with my purple tape, and then I'm going to run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. So any die cutting machine would work for this. I'm going to move on to ink blending my outer space background. So I'm using distress inks for this. I have Twisted Citron, Salty Ocean Blueprint Sketch and Chipped Sapphire. And I'm going to use the blending brushes to add the inks. So just adding a little bit to the brush and then kind of going off on the side to take off that first layer of ink and then blending onto the cardstock. I'm starting with that Twisted Citron, just adding a light spot there. Coming in with the Salty Ocean, you can see I kind of did a U shape there or a C shape. Then I will follow that with the Blueprint Sketch. Now that's going to fill in the remaining white areas of the cardstock. And something I found with it is I'm not going all the way up to those colors, the Twisted Citron and the Salty Ocean. I'm leaving a white hue around there. So almost to make it look like it's glowing. And then finished off with the Chipped Sapphire. Now I spritzed some clean water onto this background, picked up those water droplets with a paper towel, and that's just going to add a little bit more interest to the background. Once that's done, I'm adding a couple pieces of purple tape behind my cardstock with the sticky side up, and then adhering that stencil over the top. So it's being held in place with the purple tape. Then I'm going to take this gorgeous iridescent glitz glitter gel. This is from Gina Designs, and I'm going to apply this with a palette knife over that stencil. Now this is a pretty small, the stars are pretty small, so you don't really need a lot of the glitz glitter gel. It really does go a long way. Sometimes with distress inks, you can contaminate your glitz glitter gel, so just be mindful of that before putting it back into your container. So once I have that spread out evenly over my background, I'm going to just carefully remove the stencil, and that's going to add all of these gorgeous stars to the background. Now I know to me this still kind of looks like a hot mess, but once we add our images, this is going to all come together perfectly. While I'm waiting for my background to dry, I'm going to take 2 of those birthday honey cuts. I'm using the scripty word and the shadow layer. I die cut the scripty word twice from black cardstock and the shadow layer once from the white cardstock. And then I'm going to layer these all together with some liquid glue. I did it twice out of black cardstock just to add a little bit of dimension. That way I don't have to worry about messing with foam squares. So just adding those together, I'm attaching that right to that shadow layer. And then using that liquid glue, I added the second black layer. And of course, don't forget the tittle. And once those are done, I have my background here that is dry. I trimmed it down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to add that to a white card panel that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm using my tape runner to attach this. Now it was mainly dry, but because I'm very impatient, I added that I had that piece of scrap paper down just in case I smushed any of that glitz glitter gel. So if you're wondering why I had that there, but for the most part it's dry. It usually only takes about 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on your climate where you live. Mine was pretty much dry, just a little bit tacky here and there. So I have that attached to the card panel, and then I'm going to work on putting my scene together, just attaching these elements with some liquid glue. This really makes the scene come together. Once you start adding those images, it's going to pull that outer space look together. So I have the rocket ship there right over that glowing area in the background. I'm going to attach that with the liquid glue, and I do hold my hand over that for just a couple extra seconds to make sure it is really held down. You could also place something heavy on top of it, like some acrylic blocks or your MISTI tools. I'm attaching the birthday word with liquid glue as well, and I do put my MISTIs on top of it and let it sit there for a few minutes just to make sure it is really attached to that textured background. Now off screen, I did go ahead and stamp the word happy onto black cardstock and heat emboss that with some white embossing powder. And I added some black foam squares behind that to add above the word birthday. So that finishes off the outer space birthday card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will have all of the supplies listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. Thank you much for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.